Are you frustrated with figuring out how to quilt your project? Maybe you need the ultimate machine quilting planner. With this planner, you can make tomorrow's quilt today. Learn how to use it to practice designs ahead of time before you have to bring out the seam ripper because you didn't plan.
My planner. I know I want to do mid-century modern. How am I going to do it? Free motion and ruler quilting. Where is that going to appear in the quilt? Is it going to be in the border, the background, the piecing? I put all this down in the planner. I go through the planner, which has 30 pages, and I pick the pages that I will use specific to the project, and I start making notes. Already started, so I already have here how and where. I know I want to do some shadow outline quilting. I need fillers. I decided the stars from the alphabet course would be my filler design. I need a central motif. I know that with the red box. What am I going to do? What is the purpose of these? To fill in texture, to stabilize the quilt, to create boundaries. I know I want accents with my thread. I want some contrast, the purpose I need to highlight very specific things. And then when I talk about how I'm going to contrast it and what threads, I need to know what tools I will need to actually create this, right? So I need an open toe. I know I need different weights of thread, different rulers, and I even need star rulers. I have some star rulers, which is another thing that helps me create a quilting plan, is what rulers do I have that I haven't tried yet. And so I went and I picked these up. I've had these for about a year now, 2 different star acrylic quilting rulers. I don't run ahead and start quilting the quilt until I've practiced some of these techniques. The earliest thing that I can do now is to base the quilt and stabilize it, prepare it for the quilting techniques and patterns that I'm going to use. So then I take out this specific sheet for ruler quilting and a specific sheet for free motion quilting. So I have a free motion quilting plan and I have a ruler quilting plan. What tools do I need? Where am I going to feature the free motion quilting? Where am I going to feature the ruler quilting? And then once I make my notes, I go and I pull out my tools. I gather all my tools and I get to work on practice. I practice on paper, and the planner has our pages where we can practice our free motion quilting. We can make notes about the free motion or ruler quilting. Now I make sure that I use this in the final stage of my design selection. So I pull that out. The first thing is that I like to do what I call a rough draft. What's a rough draft? I just get a stack of paper. I'm sure we all have our own printer at home and we recycle paper. I print a lot of things, but once I'm done, I save it for my practice. So I have a stack of practice paper I keep in the drawer that's been printed on one side. I no longer need it, and the other side is blank. I use that for practice. I have a star ruler. It has multiple size stars on it. I want to stitch out a shooting star with rulers. Can I do it? So this is what I do. I get out my practice paper, I get my ruler, my pencil. Here's another example. From the mid-century modern, one of the designs is repetition, echoing. And I know that I've been doing echoes, so I can use my straight edge ruler to echo around the star. So that's what I do. I just look at the mid-century modern designs that I like. Can I replicate them with thread? And if so, how? Free motion or ruler quilting? Can I combine the two together? And then I figure out, well, which one do I really like? So basically, this is an opportunity to play around with the tools that we have. And often, if you're like me, you forget what tools you have until you start to pull them out of the containers, out of the drawer, and you say, wow, I forgot about this tool. And the one you're seeing now is an example. I forgot about these mini rulers that I have to help me make small stars. And if you have been to any of my Quilt Conversation live conversations, I've always said, every design that we stitch, we want to be able to stitch it, if possible, small, medium, and large. I know that stars are part of mid-century modern. They're very specific, but maybe I can change it up a little bit. Once I figure out how to replicate it, now I want to create a quilt sandwich that's similar to my piecing. So that's what I'm doing here. I am, with a ruler and pencil, I'm replicating the drunkard's path design. The test runner is the practice of putting designs from practice to quilt. But first, I need to practice on paper. I know I want to put in free motion quilting stars, so I practice that on paper first before I go to the quilt. I must practice. I'm preparing with my tools, and then I am practicing to see, do I remember how to stitch this before I go to the fabric? It's easier to practice on paper and throw that away than to make multiple quilt sandwiches. Once I have selected my designs, then I want to put them in my planner. I want to be able to say, okay, I'm going to use the astro. I'm going to use the stars from the ruler. Which designs do I that are successful that I can actually stitch? And I want to save them. And then I want to not only save them, but I want to put in notes with what I'm going to do with them, how I'm going to use them, which tools I'm using, so that in the future, because I've gone to all this effort, I want to make sure that I can come back to it. And that's why the planner is so important. Step by step by step. Think about it this way. Do you remember your grade school teacher? I remember my first grade teacher, Mrs. Dax. Every teacher in our life, I think, has some memory, some more than others. But I remember that we had a very systematic way of learning. And because of that, I remembered. Eventually, I didn't need those training wheels, but I had to learn first, right? So this is what the planner does. It helps us to figure out our own quilting plan that we can use from one quilt to the next. So here are my free motion quilting designs. I'm going to stitch falling stars and astronomical stars. That's what I call them. They are touching each other with lines that are not even. They're just very random, very free flowing, easy for filling in negative space or background space. Now I'm making notes about my stars. I know that I want to put in these stars in my runner, and I know that I want to echo the stars, going back to the mid-century modern idea, right? Now, once we have a storyline, we can always depart a little bit from it. It's to help us with our inspiration. It's to help us find a design. Now, I pulled out the ruler, and then when I was shooting this, I forgot that I can draw this star multiple ways. So either I'm going to do it one way or I'm going to do it with both. I have the option. So now I have all my stars planned out. Done. Now it's time to practice on a quilt sandwich.